the rise and fall of the Roman Empire. The history of Rome is one of the most influential stories in human civilization. It is a story of growth, power, innovation, crisis, and transformation that shaped the foundations of the modern world. From a small settlement on the banks of the Tiber River, Rome grew into a vast empire that controlled territories across Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. Its legacy still lives on today in law, language, architecture, and governance. According to Roman tradition, the city of Rome was founded in 753 BC. The legendary founders, Romulus and Remus, were said to be twin brothers raised by a she-wolf. While this story is mythical, archaeological evidence confirms that Rome began as a small settlement in central Italy and gradually expanded over time. In its early period, Rome was a monarchy ruled by kings. However, in 509 BC, the Romans overthrew their last king and established a republic. This marked the beginning of the Roman Republic, a system of government that combined elements of democracy and aristocracy. Power was shared between elected officials, including consuls and senators, although in practice, political power remained concentrated among elite families. During the Republic, Rome expanded rapidly. Through a series of wars and alliances, it gained control over the Italian peninsula and later expanded beyond it. One of the most significant conflicts of this period was the Punic Wars against Carthage, a powerful city-state in North Africa. The most famous of these wars involved the Carthaginian general Hannibal, who famously crossed the Alps with his army and war elephants to invade Italy. Despite early victories, Hannibal was eventually defeated, and Rome emerged as the dominant power in the Western Mediterranean. As Rome expanded, it began to accumulate wealth, territory, and influence. However, this expansion also brought internal challenges. Wealth became increasingly concentrated among the elite, while many ordinary citizens struggled. Political tensions grew, and conflicts between different factions became more frequent. In the 1st century BC, these tensions led to a series of civil wars. One of the most important figures of this period was Julius Caesar, a military general and political leader. Caesar gained immense popularity and power after his successful campaigns in Gaul. In 49 BC, he crossed the Rubicon River with his army, an act that marked the beginning of a civil war. After defeating his rivals, Caesar became the dominant leader of Rome. In 44 BC, Julius Caesar was assassinated by a group of senators who feared his growing power. However, his death did not restore stability. Instead, it led to further conflict. Eventually, Caesar's adopted heir, Octavian, emerged victorious. In 27 BC, Octavian became the first Roman emperor, taking the title Augustus. This marked the end of the Roman Republic and the beginning of the Roman Empire. Under Augustus and his successors, Rome entered a period known as the Pax Romana, or Roman peace. This era, lasting roughly 2 centuries, was characterized by relative stability, economic growth, and territorial expansion. The empire developed advanced infrastructure, including roads, aqueducts, and cities, which facilitated trade and communication across vast distances. Roman engineering and architecture were highly advanced for their time. The Romans built extensive road networks, enabling efficient movement of armies and goods. Aqueducts supplied cities with fresh water, while monumental structures such as amphitheaters and temples demonstrated the empire's power and cultural achievements. The Colosseum in Rome, for example, remains one of the most iconic symbols of Roman engineering. Law was another key contribution of Rome. The Roman legal system introduced concepts such as written laws, legal procedures, and the idea of justice being applied to citizens. Many modern legal systems are influenced by Roman law, reflecting its long-lasting impact. However, the empire also faced challenges. Managing such a vast territory required strong administration and a stable economy. Over time, problems began to emerge. Political instability returned, with frequent changes in leadership. Some emperors ruled effectively, while others were weak or corrupt. During the 3rd century AD, the empire entered a period known as the Crisis of the 3rd Century. This was a time of severe instability, marked by civil wars, economic decline, and external invasions. Emperors were often overthrown or assassinated, and the empire was briefly divided into separate regions controlled by different leaders. To address these challenges, Emperor Diocletian introduced significant reforms in the late 3rd century. He reorganized the administration of the empire and divided it into eastern and western regions to improve governance. This division made it easier to manage the vast territories, but also created a separation that would later become more permanent. In the early 4th century, Emperor Constantine made another important change by establishing a new capital in the city of Byzantium, which he renamed Constantinople. This city, located in the eastern part of the empire, became a major center of power, trade, and culture. Constantine also played a key role in the spread of Christianity, which gradually became the dominant religion of the empire. Despite these reforms, the Western Roman Empire continued to weaken. Economic problems persisted, including inflation and heavy taxation. The army increasingly relied on non-Roman soldiers, and loyalty became less certain. At the same time, external pressures from various groups, including the Visigoths and Vandals, intensified. In 410 AD, the city of Rome was sacked by the Visigoths, an event that shocked the Roman world. Although the empire continued to exist, this marked a significant moment in its decline. Later, in 455 AD, Rome was again sacked, this time by the Vandals. Finally, in 476 AD, the last Western Roman emperor, Romulus Augustulus, was deposed by the Germanic leader Odoacer. This event is traditionally considered the end of the Western Roman Empire. However, the Eastern Roman Empire, known today as the Byzantine Empire, continued to exist for nearly another 1,000 years. Centered in Constantinople, it preserved many aspects of Roman law, culture, and governance. The Byzantine Empire remained a major power until its fall in 1453, when Constantinople was captured by the Ottoman Turks. The legacy of Rome did not end with its political collapse. Roman law influenced legal systems across Europe. Latin evolved into the Romance languages, including Spanish, French, Italian, and Portuguese. Roman engineering and architecture inspired future generations. The concept of a centralized state and organized governance continued to shape political systems. In many ways, Rome never truly disappeared. Its ideas, systems, and cultural influence became the foundation of much of the modern world. Part 2. After the fall of the Western Roman Empire in 476 AD, the political structure that had once unified much of Western Europe disappeared, but Roman influence did not vanish. Instead, it transformed and continued in different forms. The Eastern Roman Empire, centered in Constantinople, preserved Roman traditions of governance, law, and administration. Its rulers continued to call themselves Roman emperors, and for centuries it remained one of the most powerful states in the world. The Byzantine Empire developed its own distinct identity, combining Roman political structure with Greek language and culture. Greek gradually replaced Latin as the primary language of administration, but Roman law and imperial authority remained central. One of the most important achievements of this period was the codification of Roman law under Emperor Justinian in the 6th century. Known as the Corpus Juris Civilis, this legal code preserved and organized centuries of Roman legal thought, and later became a foundation for many European legal systems. Constantinople itself became a symbol of continuity. Strategically located between Europe and Asia, it controlled key trade routes and served as a center of commerce and diplomacy. Its massive defensive walls protected it from numerous invasions, allowing the Byzantine Empire to survive while many other states rose and fell. At the same time, the former territories of the Western Roman Empire evolved into new political entities. Various Germanic kingdoms, such as those established by the Franks, Visigoths, and Ostrogoths, took control of different regions. While these kingdoms replaced Roman authority, they also adopted many Roman practices. Roman law, administrative systems, and cultural traditions influenced their development, creating a blend of Roman and local elements. In Western Europe, the collapse of centralized authority led to the development of feudalism. Power became localized, with landowners and nobles controlling territories and providing protection in exchange for loyalty and service. This system shaped medieval European society for centuries. However, even within this decentralized structure, the influence of Rome remained visible in language, law, and religious institutions. The Roman Catholic Church played a crucial role in preserving elements of Roman civilization. As one of the few stable institutions during the early medieval period, the Church maintained literacy, education, and administrative organization. Latin remained the language of scholarship and religious practice, ensuring that Roman intellectual traditions were not entirely lost. Monasteries became centers of learning, where monks copied ancient texts and preserved knowledge from classical antiquity. Without these efforts, much of what we know about Roman literature, philosophy, and science might have been lost. In this way, the legacy of Rome continued indirectly, even in regions where its political structure had disappeared. Meanwhile, the Byzantine Empire continued to face both internal and external challenges. It engaged in wars with neighboring powers, including the Persian Empire, and later the emerging Islamic caliphates. Despite periods of decline, it remained resilient, adapting its military and administrative systems to changing conditions. One of the most significant transformations came with the rise of Islam in the 7th century. Rapid expansion by Islamic forces led to the loss of large territories that had once been part of the Roman world, including Egypt, Syria, and North Africa. These regions became part of new political and cultural systems, but they retained elements of Roman and Byzantine influence, particularly in administration and urban organization. Throughout the Middle Ages, the Byzantine Empire continued to act as a bridge between ancient and medieval worlds. It preserved classical knowledge, maintained trade connections, and influenced neighboring regions through diplomacy, warfare, and cultural exchange. Its survival ensured that Roman traditions did not disappear entirely, but instead evolved over time. In Western Europe, the idea of Rome also persisted in symbolic form. In 800 AD, Charlemagne, the king of the Franks, was crowned Emperor of the Romans by the Pope. This event marked the revival of the imperial title in the West and the beginning of what later became known as the Holy Roman Empire. Although it was not a direct continuation of the ancient Roman state, it reflected the enduring influence and prestige of the Roman idea. As centuries passed, Europe gradually changed. Trade revived, cities grew, and new forms of political organization began to emerge. The Renaissance, beginning in the late Middle Ages, marked a renewed interest in classical antiquity, including the study of Roman texts, art, and philosophy. Scholars rediscovered ancient works and sought to revive the intellectual achievements of Rome and Greece. Roman architecture and engineering continued to inspire new construction. Legal systems across Europe incorporated principles derived from Roman law. Even the concept of a republic, later adopted in various forms, traced its roots back to Roman political traditions. By the early modern period, the direct political structures of Rome had long disappeared, but its legacy remained deeply embedded in European society. Nations that emerged during this time were shaped by centuries of interaction with Roman institutions and ideas. The influence of Rome extended far beyond Europe. Through colonization and global expansion in later centuries, European powers carried aspects of Roman law, language, and governance to other parts of the world. This further spread the legacy of Rome, making it a global influence rather than a purely regional one. Today, the impact of the Roman Empire can still be seen in many aspects of modern life. Legal systems in numerous countries are based on principles derived from Roman law. Languages such as Spanish, French, Italian, and Portuguese evolved directly from Latin. Concepts of citizenship, governance, and public administration reflect Roman precedents. Even modern cities reflect Roman influence. The use of grids, public infrastructure, and urban planning can be traced back to Roman models. Roads, bridges, and engineering techniques developed by the Romans set standards that influenced construction for centuries. In addition, political ideas such as the separation of powers, the role of elected officials, and the importance of written laws all have connections to Roman practices. While these ideas have evolved significantly over time, their origins can often be traced back to the Roman world. The Roman Empire, therefore, should not be seen simply as a state that rose and fell. It was a complex and evolving system whose influence continued long after its political structures disappeared. Its legacy became part of the foundation upon which later civilizations were built. Understanding the history of Rome is essential for understanding the development of the modern world. It provides insight into how large political systems function, how they respond to challenges, and how their influence can persist even after their decline. In conclusion, the story of Rome is not only about power and conquest, but also about adaptation, transformation, and continuity. While the Western Roman Empire ended in 476 AD, the ideas and systems it created continued to shape history for centuries. Through the Byzantine Empire, the medieval church, and later European states, the legacy of Rome remained alive. Even today, more than 1,000 years after its political fall, Rome continues to influence the world. Its laws, languages, and ideas are still present, reminding us that the impact of a civilization does not end with its collapse, but can continue to shape the course of history long after it is gone. Part 3. As the centuries passed after the fall of the Western Roman Empire, the influence of Rome did not fade, but instead became deeply embedded in the evolving structures of European civilization. The transition from the ancient world to the medieval period was not a complete break, but rather a gradual transformation in which Roman traditions were adapted to new political, cultural, and economic realities. One of the most important areas where Roman influence remained strong was law. Roman legal principles continued to shape governance long after the empire's political collapse. The concept of codified law, where rules are written, organized, and applied systematically, became a cornerstone of many European legal systems. The preservation of Roman law in the Byzantine Empire and its later rediscovery in Western Europe played a crucial role in the development of modern legal frameworks. During the Middle Ages, universities in Europe began to study Roman legal texts, particularly the Corpus Juris Civilis, compiled under Emperor Justinian. These texts provided a comprehensive and organized body of law that influenced legal education and practice across the continent. Over time, this contributed to the formation of civil law systems, which are still used in many countries today. Language is another key area where the legacy of Rome is clearly visible. Latin, the language of the Roman Empire, did not disappear after the fall of Rome. Instead, it evolved into a group of languages known as the Romance languages, including Italian, French, Spanish, Portuguese, and Romanian. These languages retain many features of Latin and continue to be spoken by hundreds of millions of people around the world. In addition to its influence on spoken languages, Latin remained the language of scholarship, religion, and administration in Europe for many centuries. It served as a unifying medium of communication among educated individuals from different regions, allowing ideas to spread across political boundaries. The continuity of language helped preserve Roman intellectual traditions and facilitated the transmission of knowledge. Architecture and engineering also demonstrate the enduring impact of Rome. Roman techniques in construction, such as the use of arches, vaults, and concrete, influenced building practices long after the empire's decline. Many medieval and later structures were inspired by Roman designs, and some Roman buildings continued to be used for centuries. Urban planning is another area where Roman influence persisted. The layout of cities, with organized streets, public spaces, and infrastructure, reflects Roman models. Concepts such as public baths, forums, and road networks shaped the development of urban life in Europe and beyond. The idea of citizenship, which was central to Roman political identity, also had a lasting impact. In Rome, citizenship carried specific rights and responsibilities, and over time, it was extended to people across the empire. This concept influenced later ideas about political participation, rights, and the relationship between individuals and the state. Religion played a significant role in preserving Roman traditions. The Christian Church, which became increasingly important during the later Roman Empire, continued to function as a major institution after the fall of the West. It maintained administrative structures, preserved literacy, and provided a sense of continuity during a period of political fragmentation. The Church also inherited aspects of Roman organization, including hierarchical structures and systems of governance, Bishops and other church officials often took on roles that resembled those of Roman administrators, helping to maintain order and stability in local communities. Monasteries became centers of learning and preservation. Monks copied manuscripts, including works of Roman literature, philosophy, and science, ensuring that these texts survived into later periods. Without this effort, much of the intellectual heritage of Rome might have been lost. As Europe moved into the later medieval period, economic and social changes began to reshape society. Trade gradually increased, cities began to grow again, and new political structures emerged. The influence of Rome was still present, but it was now part of a more complex and diverse landscape. The Renaissance marked a turning point in the rediscovery of classical antiquity. Scholars, artists, and thinkers looked back to ancient Rome and Greece for inspiration. They studied classical texts, revived artistic styles, and sought to understand the achievements of the ancient world. This renewed interest in Roman culture had a profound impact on art, science, and philosophy. During this period, the study of Roman history and literature became an important part of education. Works by Roman authors such as Cicero, Virgil, and Livy were widely read and analyzed. Their writings influenced not only intellectual thought, but also political ideas and cultural values. The development of modern political systems also reflects Roman influence. The idea of a republic in which power is held by elected representatives has its roots in the Roman Republic. While modern systems differ significantly from their ancient counterparts, the basic concept of shared governance and civic responsibility can be traced back to Rome. In addition, the use of written constitutions and legal frameworks reflects the Roman emphasis on codified law. These systems aim to provide stability, consistency, and fairness in governance, principles that were central to Roman legal thought. The expansion of European powers in the early modern period further spread Roman influence around the world. As European nations established colonies in the Americas, Africa, and Asia, they brought with them legal systems, languages, and administrative practices that had been shaped by Roman traditions. This process extended the legacy of Rome far beyond its original borders. Today, the influence of the Roman Empire can be seen in many aspects of modern life. Legal systems, languages, architecture, and political ideas all bear the imprint of Roman history. Even concepts such as public administration, infrastructure development, and civic responsibility have roots in Roman practices. The story of Rome is therefore not simply a story of rise and fall, but a story of continuity and transformation. While the political structure of the empire eventually collapsed in the West, its influence persisted and adapted to new contexts. Through centuries of change, the legacy of Rome remained a powerful force in shaping the development of civilizations. Understanding this legacy helps us better understand the world we live in today. It shows how ideas can survive beyond the lifespan of the institutions that created them, and how the past continues to influence the present in complex and often unexpected ways. In many respects, Rome never truly disappeared. Its influence became part of the foundation of Western civilization, and through global interactions, a significant part of world history as a whole.